Hi everybody, welcome to Paint with Rochelle. I'm Rochelle Walden and I am a studio artist here in Seattle, Washington. This is my little studio. I paint mostly portraits, and today we're going to be doing something besides a portrait. We're going to be doing garden tomatoes. And so my aim is to start a regular Paint with Rochelle free painting tutorial on YouTube. And I was going to go live today, but it didn't quite work out because I had some trouble with my computer. So I'm just going to record this just as though I were doing it live, and then I'll figure out the live part of it later. But the most important thing is that I think painting has a lot to offer us, besides just whether we make something good or something bad, or whether we think it's good or bad. Painting in and of itself as an activity has a lot of value, and it has value in terms of stress relief, which I think is so important during times like we're going through. And that's really how I got into it, was to relieve stress. And I just was so amazed and surprised at the quality of stress relief and soothing quality for my nervous system that painting provided. So I am hoping to share that with you. I'm hoping to get you to fall in love with a new hobby if you've never painted before, or maybe an old hobby if you've painted some before and haven't done it in a while. And so let's get right into it. I've got my overhead camera here, but I'm not going to have you look at my face anymore. I'm going to have you look at my desk. Um, I've got my palette set up. I'm going to move that to the side a second. I wanted to actually start with the canvas. I'm going to be using an 8x8 canvas today for my painting. I think you can see on the screen, here's the little tomato drawing we're doing. If you don't have those downloaded, go to my Facebook page, and I've got them on the Facebook page or in the event on my Facebook page called Paint with Rochelle. And you can download those into your phone or your computer, or you can just you can download them on your phone and then print out a copy. If you have a color printer at home, that's fine. Anyway, I had done a run through the other day on an 8x8 just because I wanted to get a sense of what I wanted to teach today. And 8x8 is a great size. No matter what you have, 8x8, 10x10, or 12x12 square would be fine. These littler ones are kind of good to start when you're a beginner, so you don't have to get too much paint out on your palette at once and waste a bunch of paint possibly. And I think that this is a great composition for an 8x8. So that's what I'm going to use today. In comparison, here's a 10x10. Any of these would work. So whatever you have is great. You can often get packs of small canvases like this at Blick Art Studios, which is my local art store here in Seattle, or your own local art store. Michael's or Joann Fabrics often have packs of canvases. All right, so let's move that to the side a second, and then let's talk about your palette. I use a special palette. It's called a wet palette, and it's from a company called Masterson. I think that's right. Anyway, the secret with the wet palette and the benefit to me as a painter is because I paint a while and then come back and then leave and then come back and then leave. Acrylics dry out pretty fast, and I don't want to waste all that paint. So this has actually a little sponge in it. There's half versions of this that I posted a picture of in my event on Facebook. But this is wet. This is a special sturdy kind of paper that you also get wet. And the benefit there, of course, is that it's not going to dry out right away if I need to leave and come back and I still have my paints all set up the way I want to, and then I can snap this lid on top when I'm done. And that works great for me. But you don't have to have a wet palette in order to get started painting. You don't have to have really anything hardly special except for some paints and some even not special brushes. And almost all beginner paint kits come in 12 colors, 12 basic colors. I have 12 basic colors here. You may have all of these similar colors. It doesn't matter at this point what the name of these colors is. That's for when you get into special hues and things like that, that's for a more advanced kind of painting. Anybody can make a good painting with the basic colors. So don't get hung up on whether it's the right yellow, for example, or whether my yellow is different than your yellow, or green. So here we're going to have both black and white. I've got those on both sides here. And we don't end up using a lot of black except in the background, which I'm going to show you. It's a great technique that that I'm going to teach you. And then I've got, kind of a medium yellow is in almost all face painting kits. Orange. This is kind of it's a little maybe purplish red on the purple side as opposed to the orange side, but a basic red. This is kind of a medium reddish brown. I've got a teal here, lighter green, a darker blue. This is a purple. It's hard to tell. It looks black, really. And there's a hair in there. I'll get that out of there. Purple, brown. This is like a burnt umber, sort of dark brown, and then we're back to the black. Okay, so that's how I set up my palette, and it doesn't matter if you go in, it doesn't matter if they're all over the place. You don't have to worry about having a correct order, because I just put them around the edge because I like to mix stuff together in the middle, and it's fun for me to have a lot of area in the middle. So that's how I decide how to do that. Okay, I'm going to move that over to the side. It's hopefully so you can see it. It's a little bit behind the tomato picture, which I can take down if I need to. And then I'm going to have my canvas right here. Now, for me, I have a computer in front of me, which you can just see the little edge of. This is a little bit small for me. I'm hoping that this is a bigger reference picture for you and will help you. But for me, I'm going to have a bigger, something a little closer to my eyes to see that. So let's see here. I have my phone and I have my reference picture in my phone. And so this is going to be helpful. If you want to use your reference picture like that, I just wanted to show you how I do it. See, I'm able to zoom way in on different parts of this picture. And that's helpful to me when I really want to get a sense, like, what is this color? I kind of see orange reflecting on this green here. What is that color? How can I try to grab that by mixing my own colors? But I can get some more detail here by having my reference on my phone. So I'm going to do that. Let's see. I'm going to put up on the screen real quick two tomato pictures. There's our reference picture again. And then this one has the background remove. And I'm going to have you look at that because sometimes it's easier to get a sense of what these shapes are if you remove the background. Sometimes the background can be distracting, and it's just not important to get these shapes exactly right, because nobody would know if that tomato were slightly lumpier here or there. But when say you have a different picture, something, maybe a pet or something that you want to do, and you do need to get things kind of exactly right, sometimes it's really helpful to remove the background from your picture that you took. And in order to see that. So let's go back to the overhead camera. Let's talk brushes. I have pretty much all my brushes are dog-eared and a big mess, and that's okay because I just put it all into my painting. I just make a big mess of them, and I don't take very good care of them. You should do better than me, but in any event, you really just need some, for this size canvas, you just need some medium-sized brushes. See how much space this brush will get out. This is a good one. I'm going to be putting down a lot of color with that brush. This might be a little bit big, but I could get some areas of color down in there, on those tomatoes. You're going to need a small detail brush, but I caution you not to start with this one. This is only for little like highlights, little details, maybe getting into that stem. You're going to need to get a little low light or something on it. If you start painting with your smallest brush, you're telling yourself, oh, I have to be perfect. Like every color, everything has to be just perfect the way I put it down. And it's just going to frustrate you. What I want to teach you how to do is what I want you to look at your objects as a work in progress. You're just with acrylics, you can just layer and layer. Nothing is wrong. You just keep kind of going after it. And when you have bigger brushes like this, you can get some really tasty strokes of paint and colors that will just delight you. It's not even really that important that the colors of these tomatoes are exactly the colors that are in the picture. It's just a starting point. And from there, boy, you can go hog wild. You can change them all if you want. But it's just the colors' relationships to one another that you have these high contrast areas, highlights and lowlights. That's what really makes a tasty painting. Okay, so grab your brushes. You can have just a couple if that's all you have. This big one here, this is just because I'm going to want to put some stuff in the background, and I want to show you a cool technique to put background in your painting. Okay, so let's get started. I love this. I love getting started on a painting. It's always so new. I'm just going to grab one of my, kind of just smallish, medium-sized brushes here, and I'm gonna sketch the basic placement of these tomatoes. Again, it doesn't matter if they're exactly right size or shape because nobody would know the difference. But just look as you're putting in these basic shapes. I'm gonna just use a sort of a medium hue for this. I'll grab a little bit of white so it's not too dark. I just want kind of a medium tan or brown or something because it's neither the darkest color nor the lightest color in there. I've got my reference photo so I can see a little bit closer here. Move this over here. All right, let's get some sketching in. When I have a square, excuse me, when I have a square picture and I have a square canvas, I can kind of tell about how far from the top my tomato starts here. So I'll just kind of try to get that in the basic right size and shape. I don't know if it will be exactly the right shape. I can go and change it later, but I'm just getting it kind of marked in. I'm going to take out some of the darkness here because I know this is going to be the lighter side of my tomato, so I'm going to remind myself by putting a little bit of lightness over here. All right, so then I'm going to get a little bit of that darker brown and come over here. This tomato seems like it comes down to about, maybe right here. Maybe that's a little too low. And it's about this close to the other tomato. This tasty bump right there, and then it kind of comes all the way to the edge. This is maybe where just kind of sketching in the landscape of that tomato. That making sense? Okay. And you'll see as I go along in this picture, I'm going to be changing things. The great thing about acrylics is they dry very fast. All right, this is a green tomato, I'm going to grab a little bit of white again. I don't worry too much about getting colors in my other colors. I'm not fussy like that. My whole thing's going to be a big mess by the time I'm done. But you kind of get a general hue that you want. This tomato, the relationship between this tomato and this tomato, it kind of ends like maybe right there. There's a real light spot at the top there. It comes around and it ends maybe over over here in this sort of fat spot on the tomato below it. All right. It's fun. It's fun. You get these sort of this sketch in, and you're like, oh man, this is going to be a really fun painting. I'm going to get just a little bit of this darker green, but and dull it down with a little brown. And then I'm just going to see how there's this sort of dark area. This is going to help me have a sense of the landscape of that tomato if I put in a little blob of that very imperfectly. You cannot mess it up. That's the thing I hear a lot of people say is, boy, I can't do that. You know, I can't paint. I'll mess it up. I don't know how to paint. Well, if they knew how much I don't know how to paint, I think that they'd be stunned. Because for me, it's just a series of screw ups until I'm done with the painting. That's basically it. Scrub. Oops, it's great. It's done. And then the way I know I'm done is that it finally looks good. It finally looks nice. And also the process of painting cannot be underrated as just something that's so fun. That's what it. If I would say there's any goal with this painting series, it's that I want you to just fall in love with how fun it is. Okay, we've got some tomato shapes, right? Barely anything there. Just some general color ideas and blardy-blar. But before we get going much further with this, I want you to, oh, also I forgot to mention, have some yucky towels around. You're gonna need to use them all the time to tap off water off your brush and to wash off, you know, after you dip them in the paint, they'll be too wet to go into your paint. So tap them off on your towel over here. Okay, now this is feels a little strange, but I'm gonna ask you to trust me on this. Go to your black, and I want you to black out your canvas in a rough way. That's the key here, is that it's going to be rough and it's going to be imperfect. It won't be perfectly black. There'll be parts showing through. But go rough out those shapes that you just painted in, okay? Don't be worried about covering up anything that doesn't need to be covered up, because it's not watercolor. In watercolor, you kind of have to hold your whites. With acrylic painting, you don't have to hold anything. You just hold on to your hat. This feels like messy and wrong sometimes when I get this part. It's like, oh man, I messed up my pretty white canvas. But this is a very key reason we're going to be doing this, that can make your paintings really super cute. And also it will save you time. One of the complaints I hear about new painters is that they just like, it's just taking me forever, and then they get really, really stuck in the perfectionism of it all. And I've been there too. I mean, I'm like, oh, I have to be better, you know, this has to be better, it has to be more perfect. But really, it's in the imperfection and sketchy weirdness that you find the most beauty in these paintings. All right, here you go, your black, okay? Cool. Now you're going to be tempted to put your hand down and you'll get a black hand. So be careful of that. So while this is drying, just try to hold your hand up a little more upright so you don't get a big black hand. But again, that's why we have towels. So I'm going to start here. You know, where do you start? People have a lot of different rules about this stuff. Painters, the more professional painters get, the more rules they develop for themselves. But I will tell you this right now, there are no hard, fast rules for how to put a painting down, how to approach this. So how I'm going to approach it is I'm going to just start seeing colors. Maybe I'll concentrate on one tomato to begin with, and then I'm going to focus in on that. I don't know if you can, I think you can see my phone here. I'm going to focus in on this red tomato for just a second. What colors do we see here? Well, up on this side, there's really, this is yellow. This is a very medium yellow color. If you have trouble seeing it in this version of the picture, you can always go to that other version, which has the background taken out. And then, boy, you can really see what color this is. But this is really yellow with a little, there's maybe a little bit of a green, barely there greenish tint right in this little area. Then it goes into a very handsome orange, the yellow again around the very white highlight. This is a bluish highlight right here, interestingly. And then the fade here down into this lovely reds, brownish reds, and then all the way to black over here. That's a great gradation. So we're going to get into that. I'm going to get rid of my big brush and get not too small of a brush, but not too big of one either. Kind of medium size. Do not go too small with your brush. It will make you crazy. Because you're just going to get colors down, and it doesn't matter if they're right at this point. It really doesn't. There's very few things that can be either right or wrong. And my red here is a little bit too red for where I'm going to go, which is right here. So I'm going to mix some. I'm going to mix some orange into it. Let's see. Get it down here and look over there. Boy, that looks pretty good as far as color matching in that one spot there. And it starts getting a little bit darker. Maybe I'll mix in a little bit of my darker color. I have a shine on my phone, so I think I'll pick it up. What a lot of people don't know is that almost all shadows and things contain an element of blue. And it seems counterintuitive because this is red and yellow, right? But if I were to add just the tiniest touch of a blue to this, then it starts to see what it does to my color. See the deepness in coming into this shadow? If I just went to brown, it wouldn't be quite right. I take the color that I have, and then I start mixing a little tiny tad of blue, and this is even a tealish blue, into it, and then it starts to pick up that color. It's really tasty. I can tell my tomato shape is a little off, but it doesn't bother me because this is not about being perfect. Also, I may use some of this black to my benefit over here because it's darker over on this side, and getting some of this black into my design is not necessarily a bad thing. I'll get some down here too. So see, I'm being very rough with areas of color. I'm trying to see areas of color as opposed to perfection. There's a little yellow up here. This is a little deeper yellow than I put down originally. And then that brings up some of this. Yeah, there's some shadow going up into there. So I can start seeing a dimension beginning in my tomato here. This is what we're going for. You're wanting to just start to see dimension show up. And you can always enhance, like if it's not quite red enough, or it's not quite yellow enough, or quite dark enough, you just keep adding. But one of the things I'm careful to do with myself is I don't let myself browbeat an area for too long, because the best time to paint any area in a painting is right when you're first looking at it. After you start getting invested in something that you did, then you got some challenges, because then you're like, I worked really hard on that, I don't want to give it up. But that's not the best way to go about it. So if I work on this tomato for a little bit, and then I leave the tomato, and I go over and start working on a different colored tomato, that's going to really benefit me. It's going to benefit my artwork. I'm going to hold, I know we have a highlighted spot here that I'm going to have to put some effort into, but it doesn't all have to be now. Highlights, the lightest highlights always are going on at the end, but I'll hold space for them. Just remind myself I'm there as I come back to this tomato. Okay, I'm almost done working on this guy over here because I don't want to browbeat it. Don't browbeat your tomato. Very important. Also, I want those colors to dry so that when I go back to them, I can work other layers of color into them, you know what I mean? If you get too much paint on there all at once, it takes a lot longer to dry and then a lot longer before you can handle it again. So you can see I'm just doing a little bit of paint at the time. Most people will put down too big of blobs of paint on their paint palette to begin with, and I would say go small. Go small to begin with. If you have a wet palette, it's a little bit better because then, you know, at least you won't, those paints won't dry up on you. You won't waste as much paint. All right, we're going to go into the green tomato here. I can go up real close here, but I'm going to go about right there where I can see it really pretty well. I'm seeing yellow up in these, a very light yellow, which I don't have here. Mine is a medium yellow, so I'm going to mix some very light yellow. Can you see that? I can remove our tomato picture for a second. Okay. I'm mixing a very light yellow here because I know that there's some really light yellow here. I kind of want to remind myself about it. So I'm going to put some of those spots in. There's a very light, there's blue highlights in this tomato, which I think is really interesting. See right here? That's blue. That's a very light blue. So is that. When you really look at colors, you know, try not to think you know what's there, but really look at them and see if you can figure out what it is. It's often surprising, isn't it? All right. And then what's our base color here? It's a little yellower green than this green that I have. So I'm mixing some yellow into my green. Oh, I forgot to mention, having soothing music on while you're painting is a real plus. Because that, if I weren't talking, you could just be sitting there with your coffee and your painting and listening to this gorgeous, you know, meditative sort of music. I highly recommend that. This tomato, I'm seeing some sort of tealish blues in there. I'm seeing some, interestingly enough, some greenish, some orange mixed into the green. I'll start darkening this here. I know I've got some light area, but I've got some good fade to dark that I just really like. And remember, I'm at almost all shadow consists of some sort of blue. So bringing some blue into the, experiment with it. Bringing some blue into there. Does that look right? How does it look right? Does it look like I see this blue, but I see a little more red in that blue to go into purple? Even though, like this, for example, this is too dark, it's okay. Getting colors down into there and experimenting with them while they're wet and blending them into one another, you find some really interesting stuff. And I do see purples down at the bottom, so I'm going to come over here and grab some of my purple. kind of going up into this little crevice here. And even though this isn't, this looks a little too purple, the point is, if you get some purple, if you see it, if your mind says, I think there might be some purple in there, or even if you're just guessing, you experiment with it, it just, it tickles your eye, tickles your nervous system, and it gives you, you're like, wow, that is really dynamic looking. Then you start mixing some green into it, and before you know it, it's amazing. Like, it's an amazing array of colors. I always thought I would be kind of I admire people who are like subtle painters. They paint just the bare, like watercolor artists. They paint this barest little watercolory, just, my husband can do that. When he paints watercolors, he's just so subtle, and I so admire that. But for some reason, I am not put together that way. I see color. Everything is overdone for me, it seems like. But that is just how I am. And if you find that your eye is seeing colors in certain ways, whether way over what's the word I'm looking for, like way brighter color maybe than is found in nature. That's how my stuff comes out in my portraits and in everything. And I've been surprised about it. But if you find that's you see something coming out repeatedly in your work, just lean into it, man, because you are you, and your eyes just, give yourself that credit that there's something special that you are trying to get out into the world, that your artistic self is trying to get out into the world. And you see, I had put down this purple and blue and stuff, it was not quite right, but now that I've started to blend some green into it, look what's happened. Like, it's really becoming intriguing, isn't it? And the color, it's really close to what it is actually saying there. So I'm glad I trusted my intuition a little bit and didn't overthink it. Just kind of keep going after it. Pretty soon, though, I will leave this tomato. I will leave it and not overwork it, because overworked things are sad. They make you sad. I will let it rest. I'm getting some really good dimension here that I'm happy with. So when I first go in, I don't know what colors things are. I don't know. I'm playing with the colors. I'm playing around. And also, you might notice I'm leaving the stems that are kind of in front of things. Let me put that picture back. I'm leaving those stems out for now, because I'm really going to have to get this sort of, what are the base colors going on here before I can put in those stems. So you'll be able to figure out where they're meant to go later. Don't worry about that now. And also, you can change where they are. If you don't like some of the stem stuff in here, you don't have to do it that way. Nobody will know. Nobody will know that tomato didn't have that stem right there. It's all, you're creating kind of an illusion all the time with your painting. You're creating believability is what you're creating. I'm going to kind of sketch where that leaf is going to go, just because I think that's tasty looking. All right, I need to go soon from this tomato. Don't overwork your tomato. I think half the reason people watch Bob Ross, or maybe even most of it, was it was just so nice to hear somebody talking about things in a happy kind of way. And I was thinking about this in particular for, the time we're in. It's just so nice. It's just so nice to talk about things that feel good. And it's not a small thing. We need these moments. All right. I think I'll let that go for a little bit. Just a little bit more dark in there for this stem. All right. So see what we're doing here? These are already recognizable as tomatoes. They already have a kind of a, well, this kind of looks like a peach, but in any event, they have a quality to them already, right? I've hardly done them well at all, in a sense, but they have a quality to them. And this is what I want you to see. When I'm using this bigger brush here, and I'm getting boop, 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 different areas of color, the imperfection of it is really nice. It's really tasty. And I want you to think about your painting in terms of, am I working all of the exciting stuff out of art? Because art is not a picture. If you want a picture of tomatoes, it's right there. You can frame that. It's nice. I love it. But it's not, art is different. Art is, it does something else for our soul when we look at it. And thank goodness we have it, because we need these moments. We need these soothing things to look at and to feel. And art, you feel art when you don't make it look like a picture. It's something else besides a picture. It's similar. It mimics life, but it's its own thing. I don't know if that made any sense, but so often, I mean, I get stuck in this with portrait painting, right? I really do kind of have to, I have to make it look like the person. I can't just go, well, it's art, baby. That looks like some other guy entirely, but it's my art. I have to make it look like the person. So it's not quite, in a way, it's not quite as fun because, I have to be photoreal in a way. But you'll see with a lot of my portrait work, if you follow me, I mess with colors. I change colors. I mess with how they appear in the world. And that's because the world needs me to give them art as well as reality. When people come to me for portrait work, I think they need both. Otherwise, they would just put a picture of their dad or whatever up. They need an interpretation. And that's where the real joy of looking at something comes in, whether it's a portrait or whether it's a picture of tomatoes. It's the interpretation that it tickles something. I really do think it's something like with our nervous system. Like it's amazing what it does for us. Art has a way of soothing us and changing how our day goes. Looking at art, it's a big thing. Anyway, all of that to say, your imperfection here is what makes it fantastic. My imperfection is what makes this fantastic to look at and experience for somebody. So that's something to ponder. All right. There's a lot of colors in this. This is one of these purple, it's like I call them purple tomatoes. It's not exactly purple. It's such a mix of things. But this is from my friends John and Andrea. They have they grow the most wonderful tomatoes, and I got some seeds from them and brought them back they're in Colorado. I brought them back here to Washington State and grew these gorgeous not purple tomatoes. And the colors, oh my gosh, they range everywhere from purple. I mean, we're definitely seeing purple in here, aren't we? To there is teal down here. Now this teal is probably reflecting off of the leaf that's there. It's reflecting onto the tomato, which is interesting, isn't it? So I'm trying to get a sense of where these dark colors land. How red are they? How purple are they? How brown are they? How teal are they? And I don't know, so that's why I'm kind of going back and forth and mixing colors together and seeing what comes out. It's so appealing to see the different layers of color. It's kind of dark at the top. My favorite parts in all the paintings, whether it's faces or tomatoes, it's the place where there's something that's very, very dark, like in a crevice, and it's right next to something that is really, really light. Because that's what, if I had to have to say what makes a painting amazing, it's these contrasts of color. That's what makes it amazing. Contrast from very, very light to very, very dark. And I think you can see over here, I know because I'm pointing my thing up and down. You can see that I'm tapping a lot on my towel. I'm doing it without mentioning why I'm doing it. But it's because if your brush, this brush is kind of fluffy. I mean, it's big enough that it can hold quite a bit of water. If I go over to my paints with all that water, I'm going to have a mess, and that's going to really frustrate me because then I'm going to have to kind of clean it up after that. So I do a lot of, I dip, tap, go after the paint. It's a trick that face painters know too, because I was a face painter for years, children's face painter. I still am. I do some birthday parties and things. Pride festivals are my favorite in the summertime. But you definitely, that's a face painter. You cannot have too wet of a brush or you're going to run face paint into somebody's eye. That's definitely one thing. So many things are different than face painting and painting on canvas. But I think the things I really learned from face painting are calculating that drying time, you know, into you start to get a sense of how fast your paints are drying, so how much paint you can put down at a time. Here's a really nice crevice. Really want to lean into that. It's nice and dark and yummy. And I think I'm going to I feel like I need to define where this center is. I know there's some real darks there that go into some of these crevices, so I think I'm going to start pulling that into the design. There's a whole mess of kind of dried up leaf stem things going on here. I'm not going to worry too much about that yet, because again, that would have to go on at the bottom. But I do want to get a sense of where the darks are in this tomato, and then where the lighter areas sort of emerge from, right? Now, is this tomato exactly the size and shape that it is in the picture? No, it is. That was just a starting point. It's always just a starting point. It's a suggestion. Unless you're painting a portrait of a person, it's all just a starting point of believability. Oh, I like these dark colors emerging here. See, isn't that nice? I'm getting a little yakety. I need to speed up, or so we're not here until tomorrow. But do love to. The thing is, when you get started painting, it's just so enjoyable that and then you're like, I can't wait to. I love this. It's so fun. I don't want to stop. I'm going to get as complicated as I can, but I have to follow my own advice. Don't overthink it. You can take out what's delicious about your design if you overwork it. Look here on the top. This is really interesting. The top of this tomato here, we know in our heads that, oh, it's probably, oranges and maybe purple or brown. There's some blue in here. There's some tannish green. This is kind of a totally different color in here. And so I only have this really dark blue here, so it's hard to get it to do anything but be just really, really blue. But I'm gonna try, I've got a bluish color going on here. I'm gonna try to get that in there. It's a little bit too blue, but look, it's so appealing. I didn't notice that the first time I painted this. I didn't notice how lovely and blue that is. But that's why I see, because it's a purple tomato, so, or purple-ish tomato. Of course, it's going to reflect some blues in there. That makes a lot of sense. There's a little bit more yellow going on. See how I'm doing do 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 do. Your brush will do some of the mixing for you without being too fussy. If you let it do that. If you let it have that like power. There's some lovely areas of lightness here, and then over to the side here. This is really tasty. See it start. So I look at my picture. Sometimes when I'm looking at my painting, all I can see is what I still need to work on or what I need to get tighter or better. But then I'll look up at the picture, or I'll sit back a little bit from my painting, and then I can tell that it's really coming together. You know. Let's see here. I think I'm being so rambunctious with my towel. I'm knocking my camera around. Pretty. So since I've got colors on my canvas here, and they are a little wet, when I add some of these darker colors or lighter colors, you know, I can lighten, I can darken, and do all kinds of crazy things. But it helps to kind of not have the paint entirely wet, but kind of, you know, it's kind of getting dry all the time. But when it's not entirely wet, or when it's not entirely dry, then you can mix colors into it and start, you know, change the hue ever so slightly of something. You're like, oh, that's not quite right. I didn't quite get the right, you know, hue of that. What is it actually? And then you start mixing colors into it, and it's really appealing. Let's see. Okay, what have I got going on here? There's some greens in there. There's some really tasty colors in there. In general, I think I need some more green. It's interesting that a purplish tomato will reflect so many lovely colors. Okay, now just like my other tomatoes, I don't want to overwork this. I don't want to get too invested in what I've done. I wanted to let it breathe a little bit. I have a hard time letting go. All right, I want that to breathe a little bit, because when I come back to that, I'll be able to, and it's also then a little drier. I'll be able to see exactly what needs to be fixed on it. So I'm going to go back over to my peach-looking tomato here, which I dropped water apparently. If you drop water on it, it will have this little resist thing, but it's no biggie, and just cover it up again. All right, I'm going to put my phone down so I can hold on to my canvas. Okay, let's have a look at you, tomato. So I can tell I need to get darker in here, which means in the shadow there must be some more blue going on that I need to grab. It's going to be darker over on this side. Not entirely. It starts to get really light at the top. And maybe mix some orange into that as I head up to the top. That's nice. It's really quite dark at the bottom, isn't it? It really almost blends into this black in the background. It's It's nice. It's a cool effect. All right, up at the top of this guy, how can I make this look more like a tomato, a little bit less like a peach? I've got some yellow going on, but I notice that there's some green in here that I'm gonna grab. Oops. Okay. Look at there. Pretty. It's starting to get really pretty, I think. There we go. That's a little bit better. But it's nice and dark, but it doesn't go all the way to the top. It kind of fades back. And I do notice that right up at the edge, if you go close in on your picture, there is a dark line. And that's kind of a, if you can capture that, that's kind of cool. It's dark, but then it right outside of it, it has a little bit of a glow to it almost. And I think that speaks to like kind of translucency of the skin. I don't know if I did it right, but that's what's happening there. There's a translucency that we're picking up on. Okay, up here at the top, it's a very light and peachy color. Maybe that's why I was thinking peachy right there for a second, but then it fades to orange. So don't want to overwork it, but we do want to have some of these key points now. But usually wherever there's what I was talking about with contrast, wherever there's something dark, really dark, there's something really light right next to it, that's super appealing for the eye. And I know that there's something there, and I actually I might go in and get my tiny brush so I can get that, so it's not too thick. Light yellow around that shiny bit. It's interesting. There's only a little part right in the middle that's really white. The rest of it is very it's very yellow fading into orange. And in this area right here, there's a tiny little bit of it's just a barely there kind of highlight. Oops, I got a little bit too much water on that. Can you see that? That's okay. You can always dry off your brush, then go over here and it'll soak up a little bit of the water. Let me get a little bit more of a highlight on there. And then this here, it's more of a yellow highlight, really, that spot. All right, that brush is low. You see this sort of lightness up here. It's really starting to look like a tomato to me. It's really starting to take shape. I'm going to have to let that dry over where the drip was, otherwise it kind of shows up. to take a little bit of my black, and to help tell the story of this tomato, I'm going to get a little closer in, change that shape a little bit. That's one of the fun, it's one of those fun things we have about having black in the outline, is that you can just change, if you feel like your shape is a little off or it needs a little something, you can kind of just change it. And I'm going to show you how this outline is really going to, well, it's really going to make it, there's a background trick that's really, you're going to love. You're going to love this trick. Makes you look like a much better painter than you are. Not saying you're not a good painter, but it just gets a lot of mileage for not much work. I love stuff like that. Awesome. I'm happy with that guy, how that guy looks. Okay. Now, I'm gonna go back to the green one. Now, when I look over here for the first time after I was looking at a whole different tomato, I can immediately see things that I know where I want to change that. It needs to be this way. And since my paint has been allowed to dry there, it's easy to do. It's easy to change. So that's why I've seen people do artwork online, and they go and they do, like, for instance, if they're doing a face, they do a part of the face, and then they do that part of that one little section of the face perfectly until it's done. I just could never do that, because I could have that one section of the face done, and then I could do another section and be between the two, the relationship between the two could be totally off. And then I'd be like, oh no, it's totally off. And then all that work that I put into getting the one right, I'd have to move it. I'm constantly moving things when I'm doing my artwork. I'm moving them slightly. Even me, as with me here, I'm changing where my tomato goes, because each time I go back to it, see, I'm seeing kind of some different things about this tomato. It's revealing itself to me, its personality. I love that. That's the way to, I mean, this is why this becomes such a fantastic activity. I'm certain this is why, because you're just like, oh, I can get that. I can do that just a little bit better. I see it now. I see it. I just fall in love with it. I think the only time people don't fall in love with painting is if they just truly dislike the activity in every way, which in which case they're probably not attracted to it in the first place. Or they are so hard on themselves because they're telling themselves an untruth about, you know, somebody they're supposed to be being while they're painting, you know, and it's just not true, and they're terribly hard on themselves. And then they're like, no, I hate this activity. It makes me feel horrible about myself. And I agree. Like, if that's what you're gonna do to yourself when you're learning new skills, then I would say don't do it. Save yourself the consternation of doing it. But if you can use this as a practice to show yourself kindness, boy, this is a great practice for that. Show yourself kindness, giving yourself time. This is not a small thing. We so rarely give ourselves time to enjoy an activity like this, or like anything else. Here, I just wanted to say I'm trying to find this color. It's right here, and it's like a mix of orange and green. It's a really yummy color, but I keep putting it in. Oh, it's not quite right. Oh, it's not quite right. That's okay. That's what this is about. Being not quite right. That's what it's all about. I realize this is much darker up here too. It's really kind of this color. Love it. I love these discoveries, but it starts to really come together. You start revealing the tomato that was always there. And I love this stuff. I hope you love this as much as me. Otherwise, I'll just sound like a crazy person. I'm okay with that. to be a nice leaf in there. We're almost to the point where we can get some cool leaves going on. I just want to make sure. Look at this. This is interesting. On this tomato, there is an orange reflection from the tomato right next to it. Look at that. Isn't that fun? It just, it adds so much when we, and in fact, this is, it's got a reflection along this whole side, kind of an orangish reflection, or dark orange reflection. Isn't that tasty? Other tomatoes are reflecting on this tomato. It's kind of so sweet. It's like people, how we reflect on each other. My cat, just so you know, is in a box taped to the top of my desk. And she's being so good because there's no way I could keep her out of this room. For one thing, I don't have a door on it. I just have a kind of a curtain. And also, if I did have a door, she would sit outside that door and meow and meow and meow and meow and meow forever until you'd want to just freak out. That is who she is, and I can respect that. I respect her power. I respect her powerful self. Okay, this is one of those spots I was telling you about. When something very dark meets something very light. And I can tell, right, before this one tomato becomes the other tomato, there's a very dark shadow here. And that being there, me putting that in there, is going to absolutely make the other tomato. I mean, it is. You can see it happen right in front of you. It absolutely changes the nature of what's happening here. Because I've got that dark shadow in there. Isn't that cool? This needs to be darkened a little bit. See, I just go round and round. What's wrong? What needs to be changed slightly? You can see it if you just let yourself sort of enjoy the process. Oh, I was telling you about my cat. Anyway, you'll hear these little, like she's going like, moving around in her box. Junebug. She's such a good kitty. I got her from she's a rescue kitty, and I got her from my friend that I worked with for years. She lives in New Orleans. She and her husband live in New Orleans, and they were doing rescue kitties during the pandemic. And I saw a picture of Junebug and her brother Dupree online, and we needed cats, and I was like, that's it, I've got to have those cats. They're just they're perfect, they're beautiful, I can't take it anymore. So that's why we had them, and we named them Junebug and Dupree because we want to respect their southern heritage. And it's perfect names for them, actually. They're the best kitties. Yeah, I just realized that this dark spot on this tomato is actually, it's a shadow from the stem that I'm going to be putting in. I was like, why is it so dark right there? Okay, let's finish what we're doing here. We're almost the stem portion of our tomato day. This just blends up into the rest of it. Very tasty. Now, does my tomato look like the one in the picture? Sorta, but no. It doesn't have to, right? Because why? Because picture is just a starting point. What I really like, though, is the reflection. The orange reflection right there. That is yum. Whenever I see that picture, I'm going to be like, that is fantastic. All right. Now, our big tomato is the most undone one. And now the paint has dried a little bit. So let's do this thing. It's a beaut. There's some really tasty spots in here. We need to get those darks. And so I'm gonna start there with that dark and with this dark. That is what is gonna make this sing. And then this goes into much darker than it is. It's dark all the way up here. So pretty. This is a tasty area. There's kind of a highlight. And then like kind of cleavage, like highlight, tomato cleavage, another highlight, and then another highlight. That's really cool. I want to get that. I had seen some very dark tealish blue reflected in the bottom of this, and I want to be sure to get that because it's just appealing. It's very dark though. It's teal, but it's dark teal. And it goes kind of, I need to lift up my phone. I've got a real shine from my light, my bright light here. But hopefully you can see this okay. That's what the whole idea of having the bright light is. It's just a little bit shiny for me. That's looking cool. I just love the dance of colors in this. I really do. There's something cool going on this side of the tomato, if you can catch it, that I think would be worth trying to capture. And there's again, it's reflection. It's reflection from this lighter tomato sort of over here. Let's see if I can get it. A little bit. Nice bit of reflection there. Okay, now we need to capture this highlight. So good. And we are going to have some sort of stem coming up in here, so I want to make sure. I'm trying to imagine what the tomato color is without that stem being there, you know, so that you want to get that down well, so that when you go to put the stem over it, it reads correctly. And look, see, so this light color up near the very dark and the how it faded in the green tomato is making this. It's really making things make sense. You know what I mean? When I'm painting portraits, I'm constantly, and I'll think, oh, I've got it. No, I really do see this perfectly. I've got it. I don't got it. I see something new. Oh my gosh, now I see that. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why I don't just see everything all at once. Maybe it's just because I'm not experienced enough. I don't know, but it's a constant like revealing. Oops, I got it a little bit wet. It's a constant revealing to me of things. And I just find that so fascinating because I keep thinking, well, if I did, I'm looking with the same eyes. Why didn't I see that the first time I did it? Why am I just seeing that color there now and I didn't see it before? It's just kind of fascinating. And the answer is, I don't know. I think I do know that I can only paint for so long on a thing, like we were talking about with these tomatoes. I can only paint so long on this tomato before I start to overthink it. And then that's it. Move on to the next tomato. And with portraits, it's really important that I'm accurate. So I really have to be careful not to work too much in a day where I start to make stupid mistakes if I do. And that makes my portraits take a little bit longer. And that's just got to be the way it is, man. Excuse me. This is just so lovely and pretty here, isn't it? Just kind of a yellow against here. And I lost a little bit of that blue, but I want it back. I want it back because it's really nice. It's tasty. Neat. There's a little bit of blue here too. Look at that. That's so interesting. Didn't see that before. And then here, but we haven't got quite enough highlight going on yet. I'm rubbing, sometimes I'll do, because I want it to, it goes down too bright, and I want to sort of rub it in to make it little less bright. I think you should use whatever comes to mind. If you feel like using your fingers, you should do it. That's looking pretty. Let me see this dark area over here. More blue. And that really extends kind of up right next to that highlight, doesn't it? It's hard for me to know exactly where this ends over here because there's a big old leaf that I'm going to draw in, but the point is it doesn't matter. I can make it up as I go. This needs a little more rich, delicious color in here. Oops, I didn't want to cover that up quite so much because it's got a lovely darkness to it. I want to see that. Everything is kind of reflecting something. Look at, adding these colors. If I can resist the urge to overwork it, it's so much better. It's so much better. That's the thing. Hold me back. Don't let me overwork again. It does seem like I need to get some more kind of base richness of orange in here. And up here, yum. Look at that. That looks so good. Sorry, my temptation is to just ignore you and get into my painting. I can't do that. I'm making a recording for my friends. But this is it. This is that spot that I'm talking about. Even though I'm talking to you, I just truly, this stuff sends me. It's so yummy. Look at this cool reflection. Let's see if I can get it. It's like coming around. Shows how round and fat that is there. Let's see. Get up in here. It's a little bit lighter here. Nice. Don't overwork it. Don't overwork it. Okay. Just about got it. Just about got it, you guys. wish I could see what you're painting. You're gonna have to show me. You're gonna have to show me your paintings after this so I can enjoy it. And it'll be fascinating, actually, to see how they're different, because everybody sees differently. I don't care if you try. Somebody can say, I can teach you to paint this exact thing, this exact way. It's impossible. Everybody sees differently. Even when they just really don't even want to. They can't help it because it's just how we are. It's how people are. Thank goodness for it. We're all just so unique. We're all truly unique. That's a good thing. A little bit dark in here. A little bit more dark. I love this tomato because it's just so dynamic. I love you, tomato. All right, I'm gonna take 4, 5, 6 hours doing this if I don't stop. All right, so here we are, right? We got some beautiful tomatoes. You can always work on something a little bit more, but I'm gonna call this amazing because I really, I feel like I see tomato here. I feel like I see it. And it's emerging from sort of this wonderful dark place, and it's so appealing. So what I want to do is put some stems on there. I may not follow the entire stem situation going on here, but I do want some of it in because it's gonna look cool. It's gonna help tell the tomato story, if you will. So this stem here, we think, oh, it's brown. That's a brown stem. Well, I see a lot of yellow and even going into orange, but it has a fair amount of white in it. It's pretty darn light. So I'm gonna say this is probably right around the color that is. And it's kind of, since it's dried, it has a quality to it that's a little bit scraggly. Okay. It seems really light in that one area. And then down here, it's not getting quite as light. It's going a little bit more like this. But then kind of curves in. That's neat. Falls into the shadow, gets a little darker. There's kind of a cool curlicue thing happening here. I don't know if I'll be able to capture it, but I'm going to try. And as it comes up top here, it gets a little highlight on it. And then back into the dark. Sort of. That's a cool shape. I'm not gonna lie. I think all of this stuff on top, it's a little bit much. Maybe it's a little bit confusing for me to do well. But I see that there's some goings ins and outs, and so I want to do a little bit of it because to make this makes sense. And there's some different colors in here. There's a lot of white actually on the highlight of the old stem. So I'm going to get some of those whites in there, and then I'm going to go back in with my low light because just the highlight in and of itself isn't going to make any sense. Now, when we're going in front here, boy, I see it's a really cool bluish leaf, isn't it? I mean, it's in shadow, so you're tempted to go, I don't know what's happening there, but it's really, these are kind of, because all shadows are blue to some degree. But in this leaf, boy, you can really, I think you can really see it. And so it's kind of shrivelly, so it has some different lights and darks in it that you don't have to be super specific about. You can go, blobby like that a little bit. There's a little bit of a, since I mean, again, you can't really mess it up because it's an old wrinkly leaf. Like, who knows what it actually, who knows what it looks like? Nobody would be able to know if that leaf is different than in the picture than what you're painting. But it has to have an air of believability to it, right? You see, I'm grabbing different combinations of this bluish, this bluishy leaf color, and then kind of going for it and just putting it in. Doing a shape that I think is maybe a little more cool and believable than maybe what's there. All right, now we have to go back in and get a low light on that stuff. And it's really quite dark. It's really almost black here, but I'm going to mix some brown into the black, and I'm going to be imperfect. I'm leaving a little bit of that highlight out there. You can see in the little joints where it kind of changes direction. It'll be a little slightly thicker. So you can play with that a little bit as it comes into this light area. It gets even the low light gets a little bit darker, it looks like to me. But I'm not going to overthink it. Very important. Because you'll make yourself crazy if you do. You'll make yourself crazy overthinking your things. If it works, if it has an air of believability to it, then you go with it. That's my advice. Here, since the light is coming from the top, the low light kind of switches down here to the bottom. That's interesting. Makes it appealing. Back here, this is kind of a shadow. A little bit more of a shadow on that guy. Cool. All right, let's go up here. Well, hang on just a second. I didn't really complete the believability factor here. This doesn't have a low line on it. So this is where a little brush, right, can help you. I have a really fine point. This is a little bit thicker brush. I don't know if you can see that, but I have a really fine point on it, and so I can use it almost like a little round liner. But you can grab your little round liner when you need to get like a little low light on a twiggy part, like I'm doing here. You can do that. My leaves just have kind of an air of believability to them. There's some lights and darks, and it definitely looks old. Looks like it's, old, like it's dried up, and that's what I want it to look like. So cool. And look, you don't put much effort into it. If you just got to get a sense of whether something is old or not, you kind of go make it sort of bumpy and stuff accordingly. It's gonna work. I like that. All right, up here. There's a leaf that's pointing to the front. There's one here that I had seen earlier that I really like. It looks very tomatoey. And then is a cool stem, dealio. Almost blends into the background at the highlight part of it, I mean. But then it kind of comes in front of that black and goes down. That's nice. So then I want to get some darker green mixed with a little bit of brown maybe. And I'm going to hit the bottom of that leaf because it just doesn't stick out unless you do. A little bit less green, more black. And then of course the bottom of this stem, you know, needs to have that kind of dark black, and it sort of fades into black there really. There's a stem that comes up here and kind of helps tell that story. It shows the highlight of the other stem nicely. Very imperfect. That's key. You do not have to do all this perfectly. It's a story that you're telling. An imperfect story. Like us as people. We are imperfect stories. And I love that about us. Just saying. Okay, this stem kind of goes and hides behind the other tomato thing, so I'm not going to worry too much how it ends. But I do want to put a little bit more of a highlight on it. Cool. So it's like you don't know what's going on in there exactly, but you know something's going on there, and you know that it's a leaf thing that's going on. That's all we need to know sometimes. It's just a leaf thing. It feels like it needs to be darker and emerging kind of from there. Yeah, cool. Okay, now we're gonna have some stuff go in front of that stem. I see some green in our picture. I see some green. I think it's another tomato back behind this tomato. I'm gonna leave that out because I can't really tell what it is. And if I tried to paint it, I think my viewer wouldn't be able to really tell what it is either. So I'm gonna leave it out, I think. A little bit of orange in that. Tomatoes are so beautiful. I just think they're just like, tomatoes are like kind of like, I don't know, so full of life. Growing tomatoes makes me feel so good about myself. It defies explanation almost how good I feel growing tomatoes. I know I'm not the only one in this. Other people have real nostalgia about the tomato situation. I'm glad that we share this sort of great love of such things. I just saw something I wanted to add to, a little bit of darkness and yummy. Cool. That adds a nice dimension there. Don't you think? Isn't that just the color? Adding some of that orange into the green. It really picks up that reflection, and it's really yummy. Up my highlight a little bit. Put it back. Nice. Seems like it needs to be a little darker. Okay. It's hard to stop. I'm just so curious how everybody's is looking. You'll have to send me pictures. I would just love it. That's cool. All right, now back to this guy. So I just really need this to look like a suggestion, really. And then there's a really tasty thing here that somehow I'm going to approximate. And that's the leaf kind of coming out in front of the other tomato. I don't want to miss that because I think that that's going to help really tell the story. On the top, it's really kind of yellow. It gets very tiny. Good. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to call this good. I can always work on this more, but again, what happens? If you overwork it, you will get rid of some of the personality that these tomatoes have. Now, this background that we put in, this is the fun part, okay? This is what I really, really want you to watch. This background looks so messy right now, right? It's not pretty. But watch this. Now, a predominant color in here is orange. Orangish reddish, right? There's greens and blues, and there's a lot of purples, there's a lot of different things, but a predominant color in here is orangish reddish, okay? So what on the, if you looked at the color wheel, what's kind of the opposite of that? It's kind of bluish. And so I am going to take this yummy color right here. And this is, again, I've got my big brush. So I've got black in all around these shapes. Just I'd like to put a little bit more black right there. Boop, 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 boop. And there's a reason for that. It's because when we do this effect, this cool effect that you will love, and you go it real rough over that rough black that you put in to begin with, while leaving kind of a border close up to the, I'm gonna get two colors of blue actually, because it's so cool when it dries, when you get these different hues. I might even get a tad of brown. You leave a little border and it just looks like you are the most amazing painter on earth, because see, some of this black shines through, and the sketchiness of this effect mimics the sketchiness of all these colors that you actually have put. You've put all of these colors into your tomatoes in some places, whether they're very dark or whether they're mixed with other colors, doesn't matter, they're in there. See how imperfect I'm doing this. The border, got a weird thing there. The border does not have to be perfect. In fact, it's better if it's not. The border up near objects, I mean, doesn't have to be perfectly to the edges, and it definitely, and most decidedly, does not have to be perfect in terms of how it's covering the black, because you want some of that black to shine through. That's why it's so appealing. It's so appealing. There's a million ways to do a background, but this is a great one. And you'd skip doing all of the fussy shadows and stuff. That's fun. We'll do shadows in a different painting. That's fun to do too. But sometimes it will hang people up and go, oh, I just don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know if it's believable, blah, blah. So see, I've been using my teal color. I've picked up a little green into there to get it light in certain spots. And I've picked up some darker blue to get it dark in certain spots. And my brush is fairly dry. And in that way, I can be assured that I am not going to overcover this. Because if I overcover it, then I kind of miss the whole fun and effect of doing a sketchy background like this. This shows off your painting like nothing ever does. This is just a very cool way to finish up a painting. And I hope you're able to use this over and over and over as you go through paintings. I'll use it again as we go through our demonstrations, and I think you'll love it. Look at that. Isn't that cool? I just see one area I have to change. This needs to be more defined. So pretty. There you go. What do you think? This kind of painting, not only is it fun for you to hang in your kitchen and go, I did that. It's whimsical, it's a great gift, and it's really fun to do. So I hope you enjoyed this. This was great fun for me. I'm so sorry that the live didn't work out, but the recording is just as good in the sense that you can sit down with your paints, a glass of wine or coffee, whatever you want, and make a masterpiece. And I hope that some of my tips and tricks on this helped you to think, yeah, this is not as hard. This is not as hard as I thought it was. And I think I can do this again and again and again. All right. Thank you so much for coming to Paint with Rochelle, and I will see you next time.